we'll have other webinars set up for more advanced questions and tutorials and things like that. But what we really want to go through is just the basics as quickly as possible, and then try and run through some of the questions that people have on live. So super excited to have you. I'm David. I'm one of the founders of Trace. This is Adrian. Adrian's going to run you through the platform, and he's in OG with us. So super excited to have you with us. We know that giving us your Sunday night is a lot to ask for. And so we're going to try and run through this as quickly as possible. And then for those who want to stay on and hear us answer some questions or ask some more questions, we're happy to spend time with you. So with that, Adrian, I give it to you and take it away.
Cool. Thanks, David. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Adrian. Just a little background on myself. I was a former director of a youth soccer club. I coached college way back in the day, it feels like now. But more relevant to everybody here is I'm also a parent of two little ones that are just starting their journey through the club soccer world. So I have the pleasure of kind of being in your same shoes of tracing my kids' games every weekend, and then enjoying going back and reviewing their highlights and all their exciting game footage and all that good stuff. So I'm going to walk you through kind of like the basics of like what Trace is, what it looks like from your perspective, like how you can like view your child's highlights and enjoy it and all that good stuff as I personally do. So I'll share my screen and walk you through some stuff. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll do a little Q&A at the end as well, as David mentioned. So many of you that are joining this probably are somewhat familiar with Trace. Some of you may not be familiar with Trace whatsoever. And thanks for joining us if that's the case. But a lot of you may have gotten a email that looks something like this, whether you've been added to one of your team rosters by your coach or manager, and then now all of a sudden you're getting these emails that say, hey, your video highlights are ready. Maybe somebody had forwarded you a link to a game, and you're just kind of thinking, all right, what do I do from here? So first things first, I got this email from my child's game. They were in a tournament last weekend. I can now just click in here and go ahead and jump in and check out Trace. So when you click on one of these links, it's going to take you first and foremost to our video player, which is very similar to YouTube or anything like that where you've ever watched any sort of video in the past. So when I get on this game results page, I'm going to see this player search menu, which for me, I right away can recognize all of the players, all my son's teammates that are listed here on their roster. We completed our roster and filled in all the players' names, so you can see more detailed information about the players. However, for some teams that haven't filled out their roster, it might just say, jersey number 7, player number 8, so on and so forth. But obviously, you can see these little icons and be like, oh, look, there's little Johnny, there's my son Caleb, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a pretty neat tool of just identifying who is who, even if your son hasn't been, on like his name hasn't been filled out on the roster. You can go ahead and identify him, click on your child, and then go start watching their video. So if we take a look at my son Caleb here, I'm showing you guys this all on mobile. That's where we get like 80 or 90% of our views all come via cell phones. That's where the majority of people are watching anything nowadays. So you'll see this is what it looks like if you were watching Trace on your cell phone, which is certainly where parents and players we know are engaging with their footage the most. So now I'm popped into the game player. I can just start watching the game right from the beginning. And then it's going to show me here all of Caleb's highlights that have been automatically identified and edited out for him and for me to enjoy. So I can scroll through the timeline here and see all of these cool little highlights that he's been tagged in. There's additional information that's tagged on each of these highlights, such as where it occurred on the field, what was going on during that highlight, is it a passing sequence from our team, did it occur in the offensive third of the field or the defensive third of the field. So just some helpful information so I can really quickly scan through here and go, oh, I want to go back and rewatch that goal from my son's game this past weekend. So you can cruise through the playlist here, check out all the awesome highlights, obviously. One of the features that we really love is that, as you can see here, my son's automatically identified and has this cool little halo surrounding him. So it makes it really easy for me as a parent, or if I send this out to grandma.
Real quick, can you hear me? Yeah. Game sound. We can hear the game sound over the voice. Can you mute the game sound so that people can hear your voiceover more clearly?
Yeah, not a problem. I thought I had muted it. That's really odd. Give me 1 second.
Sorry, turn around.
You may need to mute
Let's
the tab. If you right click on the tab in Chrome, you can mute the tab.
Yeah, it is muted. That's the weird part.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, give us 1 second. Technical difficulties here. All right, can you still hear it? How about now?
We can still hear it. Maybe pause the video and talk about the attributes.
Well, here's a little trick for everyone. So obviously you could turn the game sound on or off. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. That's weird though, because my browser was muted. But anyway, let's turn that off so you can hear me a little bit better. Going back to the show here, as I was talking about, you can see the players that are automatically identified, and my son has this cute little halo around him. You can see that his name is also listed on the screen here, which makes it really easy for myself, grandma, grandpa, anybody I send this link to identify, who my child is and who we're focusing on when we're watching the game video. So hence the name Player Focus with Trace. We're all about making your game footage really personalized to you and your children and anybody that you're sharing that video with, because we know that's obviously the most valuable part of that 60, 70, or 80-minute youth soccer game. What we care about most, obviously, is rewatching the highlights that are relevant to our children or to the players themselves when they're watching the game footage. So you as a parent obviously can scroll through any of your child's playlists. You can view any of the other children if you wanted to check out some other cool highlights from your team. And then anything that you really enjoy that you want to save and add to your own like curated playlists, you can easily do so. We see this save button here. If I really love this highlight here of my son, I can go ahead and hit save. And I could build out various playlists for all kinds of different things. If it's like top goals, if I wanted to focus on, here's a silly one that I've created for my family. My kids like to foul a lot. I don't know about yours, but every time they do foul, I find it really funny. So I built out this Martinez family fouls playlist, and I go ahead and add all of my kids' fouls throughout all of their games. And my wife and I love going back and watching that. So you go ahead and save it to any of your favorite playlists. And now not only do you have obviously this playlist from this one match, but you can go ahead and take any of these individual highlights off of this game and store it on your own customized playlists on what we like to call your Trace ID. So you'll see all of these playlists and highlights from every match that you have. I'm logged in here and I have an active account. Some of you who have had access to Trace now may be saying, every time that I watch, it looks a little bit different. I get this pop-up window, etc. So if we go take a look here, this might be more so what it looks like on your end. Let me make sure sound is off. You're watching any of these highlights from your team that you've been added to the roster. Somebody sent you some Trace video. You'll see the little ticker here at the bottom. It gives you a 4-minute preview of the game, at which point it's going to ask you to either sign in or sign up to your account. So you can go ahead and sign up for a game or sign into your account if you're an active user in order to continue watching. If you're not an active user, it's going to prompt you to sign up for one of our subscription options. Are you able to see my screen here? Because somebody mentioned that they're not able to. David, can you see my screen? All right, sorry about that, guys. Give me 1 second. How about now? Yep. Cool. So as I mentioned, some of you who've been added to a roster or somebody, your team manager, your coach has sent you, the game footage from your team. And if you don't have an active subscription with Trace, you're going to get this 4-minute preview, as you can see here, at which point it's going to ask you to sign in or sign up for an account. So if I go ahead and click that, I'm going to have the sign in option here if I am an active subscriber. If I am not, I'm able to sign up to a Trace subscription directly from here, right in the video player, and decide which type of subscription option suits me best. So you can pay yearly. Obviously, there's a significant cost savings in doing so, which is what most people choose to go with. There's also a monthly subscription option. If you choose to pay via that method, it's a little bit more expensive over the course of the full year if you're paying the monthly plan, hence why most people choose the yearly option. Now, the beauty of this also is that you can start with a 14-day free trial. So I can go ahead as I'm watching the game footage, get myself signed up. I'm going to have those 2 weeks to continue enjoying watching the game with full access, at which point, it's going to automatically subscribe you to whichever subscription option you've selected, unless you go ahead and cancel prior to that 14-day period, of course. So it makes it really simple in how to get signed up on any of your teams. Your manager can just add you to the roster. It's going to send you an invite at which you can confirm your spot on the roster, fill out your information for your family, add any other family members that you want to get the game video shared to, whether it's mom, dad, siblings, you name it. And then you can go ahead and sign up directly from there for one of these subscription options, whichever one you feel best suits your needs. So I know I ran through all of that very quickly, but again, this was more of a high level overview of just like, what is Trace? How do I access my game video when I get one of these links or somebody texts it to me? And then when you do jump on the platform, how do I navigate it a little bit, check out all the different players on our roster? How do I get myself signed up so that I can have full access for my child's games over the course of the next year? So last but not least, I'm going to show you something that as a parent is something that I personally enjoy. It's probably my favorite thing when it comes to Trace and watching my son's highlights. All of us as parents, again, we like to watch our kids' games. We're there in person. We want to relive all the best highlights of the match. That's what Trace makes so easy for all of you. But when you're watching the game video, of course, the most important thing in all of our eyes is our child, who's the star of the show. So it's fun watching the game footage and getting to see, what else is going on in the match. But personally, my favorite thing in watching for my son is if I go ahead and go to his Trace ID, we're going to see here, there's a playlist in his Trace ID profile called Front and Center. Some of you may never seen this before. For some of you, it may be a review because you're like me and you already love watching the Front and Center highlights every weekend. But if I click in here, this is now going to show me those same highlights from my son's match. But as you can see, it's now really zoomed in and focused on my son specifically, hence the name Front and Center. So I get to watch an up close and personal view of my son, exactly what he's doing, watching him run around the field, when he's on the ball, when he's not on the ball. No matter what, my eyes are always glued to my son and what he's doing on the field. So this Front and Center feature obviously makes it that much easier for me as a parent to go ahead and enjoy watching my little son front and center, up close and personal. And these are, my favorite highlights of him that I get to watch, rather than, like back in the day, having to like zoom in and track him manually and do all the work. The beauty of Trace and this feature is that it obviously does that for you automatically. So again, we covered a lot here of just like the basics, high level overview. I think it's a good time to pause. We can go ahead and jump into some questions that we see here in the chat. Yeah, and I guess we can start from there. Do you want to take this first one, David? How do I edit the footage and download the video?
Sure. So the best way to edit footage. So one of the premier things about Trace is that we edit a lot of footage for you, right? So most of what you should be doing is saving your highlights. So there are two ways to save a highlight. You can either save it right from here, or if you want to take a bunch of highlights, let's say I want to take 5 or 6 highlights, and I want to download them into a single video, we would make a playlist like Adrian was showing. So you click that save button, you add it to your playlist, and then when you go into your Trace ID, for example, Martinez Family Goals, you can download the entire playlist all together. And that will concatenate all the videos together for you. If you want to save a highlight that Trace did not identify, then you can also use that save button. So the scrubber on the video timeline allows you to go anywhere within the game. And you can make highlights from there if you wish as well. So two ways to do it. You can, both of them go through the save button. That's my favorite way to do it. And then you create a playlist and then you can download 10, 20, 30 of those highlights all together. I'll take another one. I see, why can't I see player metrics? Player metrics is something that Trace used to do, but we wanted to solve a bunch of problems with player focus that we heard over and over from parents. So front and center is one of them, right? Parents said, I want to zoom in on my kid. I want my kid to be the star of the video. I want it to feel like I hired a videographer to just follow him or her around. And so player focus does exactly that, right? It's so much easier to find Caleb when Adrian showed it to you. There's a circle underneath him. We call that spotlight. His name is over his head. So you send that to grandma, you send that to an uncle or friends. They're going to know who Caleb is immediately without really having to work. And then front and center, you don't have to explain anything. He's in the front and center of the video. It's very, very obvious who that video is about. And that's where we really focus our attention on player focus, is making sure that your son or daughter is really the highlight of the video, that it's not the soccer game that's the highlight of the video. And then the second thing that we wanted to really focus on is, a lot of teams told us how hard it was to buy Trace. So you have to get everyone on the team involved, and then you have to get everyone to Venmo you money, all these sorts of things. And so we made it super easy to go family by family, right? You don't have to get a Venmo from anyone. You get the game link if you want to sign up the way Adrian showed you, monthly, yearly. It's really easy to choose a plan. And so we made it super simple to focus on your family, and we made it super simple for a team to sign up. And those were the two really main points that we wanted to focus on when moving to player focus. What we found with the old software is that we really didn't get a lot of engagement on the stats. That's something that we talk about internally about bringing back, but really what we wanted to focus on was the video and highlighting your son or daughter in the video and making it super simple for a team to purchase. I see another one. How do I add someone to the account? So on the basic account, you'll have 2 spots. On the pro account, you'll have 4 spots. And if you click on that hamburger menu, Adrian, on the top left, you'll see my family. So you click on my family, and then you can manage my family. And so when you click on manage your family, you'll have a lot of information there around email addresses and phone numbers and all sorts of stuff, and you can invite another family member.
That answers another question as well. If I subscribe, can my wife also access the game footage? David just answered that. The answer is yes. Go ahead and invite them as your family member. Depending on which plan you choose, you'll be able to invite additional members of your family that'll also have full access to whichever plan that you subscribe to, whether it's the basic or the pro. How about this one, David? Is there a monthly fee if I'd like to add my coach? This is a common question that we get.
Yeah, common question. So on the pro plan, you have 4 spots. You can add your coach in one of those spots, or you can start a new subscription for him. So start a new email address, start a new subscription. There isn't a limit on the number of subscriptions you can have, but everyone needs to be part of a subscription in order to access the footage.
Yep, and to add to that, coaches do have a specific playlist that is tailored to coaches and their wants or needs. So as you can see here, I'm logged in as a coach, Martina is now. There's all these various highlights that I can filter by here at the top. I can choose an individual player if I, as a coach, want to do an individual video review session with one of the players on my team, which is super powerful, obviously, giving players individualized feedback and using video to show them things that they can do to improve in the game or areas where coaches would like them to focus on. So it's a very powerful tool for that as well, for coaches that are really interested and invested in using video that way. So this makes it even easier for the coach to not have to spend hours and hours editing footage. They can go ahead and here filter by the relevant tags or focus on the individual players, and then go ahead and create their own coach playlist, share it out to the team, and so on and so forth. I think we might have answered one of these questions on this meeting. None of my game recordings have sound. What am I doing wrong?
So that was, a lot of users do not want sound. A lot of things are said on the sideline and so forth. So by default, everything is muted, but you can turn the sound back on. So Adrian is showing you that gear icon. If you tap the gear icon, there's the game sound there. You can increase the playback speed. You can loop your highlights, see radar, all sorts of different settings like that. But most people do not like having the sound on. So Adrian is showing you portrait mode, but in landscape mode, I see a message from Kelly. How do I go back and scrub the timeline? If you move into landscape, you can scrub along the timeline of the game. You can also scrub along the timeline of the game by adding 5 seconds and removing 5 seconds there on the portrait mode. But in the landscape, you can actually, just like a video, you can sort of drag your finger and scrub, and you can go to that part of the game and then click save. See some questions about accounts not showing front and center. So right now it only shows in the player's trace ID. So you do have to go to the player's trace ID, but we will be changing that shortly. You'll have a front and center playlist for all of your kids.
So again, as a parent of Caleb here, I can go to Caleb's playlist on his little initials here, CM for Caleb Martinez. I click on that. I can go to Caleb's trace ID, and that is where I will find his front and center highlights there. Let's see what other questions we have here. Use the player focus. As a coach, am I able to use the player focus on specific players, meaning the spotlight that follows them around?
Every single player should have the spotlight that follows them around. So if you want to follow around a certain player, just navigate to their playlist. So on here, it's the magnifying glass. You tap on the magnifying glass, and you should be able to navigate to any single player. And then the player that you choose will have spotlight on them. Patrick, yes, front and center will be on parent dashboards in a couple of weeks. Patrick asks, why are highlights created when my player is not on the field? With player focus, the main goal is, of course, to give you highlights of your son or daughter. But we also think about it from a player development standpoint. So you will have 2 to 3, maybe 4 highlights of plays that happen on the field that are similar to the position that we find that your son or daughter plays. So you will have from time to time highlights that are not of your son or daughter, but the system thinks that those might be highlights that you would find interesting or learn from because your son or daughter plays the same position.
Here's a question from Chris Scott. If a player wants to subscribe to Player Focus for the current fall season only, the team doesn't play in the spring, will they have access to their highlights after the season?
So with player focus, it's really about your subscription. The whole goal is that you no longer have to worry about the team, right? So one of the things about player search, if you scroll up here, Adrian, you'll find that there are two jerseys. So this is a benefit to you because maybe your son or daughter wants to look at the opposing team and wants to, track a player that did really well or learn from a player that did really well. Or maybe someone from the opposing team asks you for the video, and now they can get highlights just like you were getting highlights. So we have plenty of people from away teams who subscribe to Trace and they get Trace. And so the whole point here is it's about your subscription. When you get Netflix, you don't worry about your neighbor getting Netflix. And so it's really about, are you paying to access the content or not? Anthony, I'm receiving my camera this week. So yes, there will be some videos in your Trace ID on how to use the camera and things like that. We also have a great support page. So if you go to support.traceup.com, you can read a bunch of articles, watch a bunch of videos on how to get started and how to use some of the materials and the features. And I strongly recommend going through that before your first game. I'm excited for you to get your camera, Anthony. So good week ahead. Can I easily move 60 highlights from one playlist to another playlist? I'm actually not sure about the answer to that question. Never tried to do that. Might be something that we have to get back to you on. The platforms are fairly similar, Kelly, on the computer. On the computer, there are actually a few more features that aren't on the mobile phone. So not only will you see the away team, which I think is specific to your question, but you'll see the away team name. So yes, that's available on the computer, and then there are a few features that are available. So here we go. Adrian's showing you what it looks like on a desktop. Um, Sure. So the way to get a video with multiple highlights is maybe if you just go to your Trace ID, Adrian, and let's go to that Family Fouls playlist. This is also one of my favorites. I follow Adrian's kids on Trace and a lot of slide tackles. So you can see that download button on the top right. And if you click on it, you can download just that moment or the entire playlist. And so all the highlights that he's put into this playlist, it looks like it's 10 or more, it'll turn into a single MP4 file that you'll then get an email about once it's done. Should take 10 to 30 minutes, and it'll be all in one file. Another question that I saw before, maybe if you go back to your game, Adrian, just how do you share a game link with other parents on the team? So adding them to the roster is by far the best way to do it. But also, if you go into, can you go into the desktop mode maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And go back into the player roster. There should be a shared game link there. So shared game link, you just click that and you'll send that to the families and they'll be able to see the roster and then click on their son or daughter. All right. It looks like we are just about out of questions. Want to thank you so much for giving us a half hour on your Sunday night. Hopefully, we've answered some of your questions of how to get started on Trace, how to subscribe to Trace, how to share Trace, and can't wait to see what you all do over the course of the season. We're seeing record numbers of signups and record numbers of games every single day. So it's an exciting time to be in club soccer. Thanks, everyone.